Good here in the ATL. Just getting ready for the upcoming Celebration Bowl. Then we went about 40 days without rain, and so we just got some rain this week. So things are good here in the city. But let's talk a little bit, man. As I mentioned, you hail from Florida A&M University. You played under the legendary Rudy Hubbard, the Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
Now here's the thing. Now, I did a little research, and because my uncle was he played for Jake Gaither down there at Florida A&M, and he's actually what got me into this whole HBCU thing. And he always used to brag about Florida A&M being the only African American school or HBCU to win Division II national championship, and Coach Hubbard was the coach that actually led FAMU to that national championship. But it was like a year after you left.
Well, it was actually 2 years after I left.
Okay.
And but I still think that I had some residue or influence on that team that won that national championship, because it was my roommate, quarterback Albert Chester, who was from Jacksonville. I think that I had a little bit of positive influence on him, so I'll take a little bit of credit for that. And I also had a cousin who was the punter and place kicker during that time, Vince Cole. So even though I wasn't there, I lived vicariously through those guys during that championship run. And obviously what Rudy meant to that organization and the institution was outstanding.
Absolutely. Now, talk to us about what was black college football like back in the 70s?
Man, it was more than a game. It was an event. I mean, and FAM being the institution that it was in its heyday, and you said that your uncle played for Jake Gaither. I'll tell you a very quick story about Jake. Jake had officially retired from the athletic department when I got there in '72. But my freshman year, his wife, Sadie Gaither, was my English teacher. And I did everything that I could to make sure that she didn't know that I was on the football team. I guess I had a pretty good game one game, and, everybody in class was talking about it. And she said, "Oh, you that Greg Coleman?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Well, Miss Gaither, I just doing what I'm doing." And she said, "I want you to come to my house twice a week to make sure that you get your homework. You're not going to be like the rest of these boys." And that was the experience of an HBCU school, where you had teachers who cared about you as a person, as a student, and to make those kinds of demands on you as a student athlete. And Jake would come home and say, "Well, hell, Sadie, why you got to come in here?" And she'd just say, "Jake, you shut up and go in your room. This baby's going to get his homework." And, man, I never forgot those stories. And I share that story so many times with our athletes here up with the Vikings and young athletes. Man, you treasure so many great things that will come across into your lifetime. And it just causes you and it reminds you that nobody has to do anything for you. They do it because that's what God put in them. And you asked me, what was that experience like? It was a family, whether it was on the football team or in class, or any place else. That's about the closest thing that I can say. And even today, still in communications and fellowship with a lot of my freshman brothers, who we, don the orange and green with. And those are things where you talk to kids that go to the other major colleges. I think those are some of the things that they miss. Not to say that it's right or wrong, but you asked me about my story. When we would also ran track, and when we would run practice a little bit late, my track coach, Bobby Lang, when he came to Jacksonville to sign me, he can kick as much as he wants. He can run track as much as he wants. And if he does the right thing, it might just be possible that he could take it to the next level, which that's what everybody wants to do who plays college football, to take it to the next level. And it was those experiences with teachers and coaches, even the people in the cafeteria, you asked that question, Rob, and now you're forcing me to go back and really relish some of the relationships that were forged years and years ago. Man.
That's what it's all about. I mean, when I talk about my HBCU experience, it was a nurturing experience. I mean, and that's
absolutely.
And as you just said, that's the one thing that you don't get when you go to a PWI. And no knock on PWIs, and no knock on the athletes that have made the decision to attend those PWIs, because I get it. I mean, it's a big stage. I mean, you're on TV on a regular basis. I mean, I get all of that. But at the same time, I wouldn't trade in my HBCU experience for anything.
Nothing in the world could make me go back and redo it, because again, it was, you got to understand, I think I'm a few years older than you, but you got to understand we were just coming out of the 60s and the civil rights movement and all of those things, and the front end of integration and all of those things, but it was a period of time and a period in my life that, without question, I think I made the right move, regardless of where some of my other high school mates went and went on to do some great things. But man, being at A&M was just awesome.
This is the HBCU Report. Rob Calloway on the line with Greg Coleman. He is the first African-American player, punter in the National Football League. He currently works for the Minnesota Vikings as a sideline reporter, correct?
That's one of the things that I do. I wear several different hats. I do have a 9 to 5 with Harris Corporation out of Melbourne, Florida, and their public safety communications end of it. Maybe have a few more years left there, but also started my tenure here in Minnesota back in a long time ago as a player in 1978. Played here for 10 years. Finished up with the Washington Redskins the year after Doug Williams and the Skins beat the Denver Broncos. So Doug and I were teammates my last year. But we made the decision to stay here in the state of Minnesota. We had our kids here, went to school here, and we just made Minnesota our home. As a result, staying connected with the organization was always utilized. Did some pregame, preseason broadcast, television, radio, and all of those things. So for the last 15 years, I've been on the sidelines as part of Vikings Radio Network. So since '78 to currently this season, have been involved with this organization in one way, shape, or form or another. Also chair the Vikings Alumni Association. So it's just been a good mix. It's been a good marriage, and it's been a good fit for me. I still enjoy the game. I enjoy our players. And you well know, Rob, there's nothing like football.
Oh, yeah. I'm always screaming for more football. More football, please. Now, were you a part of the broadcast crew when the Falcons came up to Minnesota and beat the Vikings?
You had to do that, didn't you?
I had to. Yeah.
You had to do it.
That was the greatest moment in Falcons history. I had to.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But yeah, and we were talking about that the other day. I mean, Gary Anderson was our place kicker. I mean, we were 15-1. Gary hadn't missed a kick all year. But you know what? As fate would have it, pulled it left. Last year, we got into the playoffs, NFC North champions, had the Seattle Seahawks on the ropes. So all we needed was a 27-yard field goal to move to the next round. And 27 yards, Blair Walsh pulled it to the left. So there's something about place kickers in 27 yards. So if we ever line up again for another 27-yard field goal, take a penalty, move it back, or do something.
That Blair Walsh kid, he played here at UGA. Hey, man.
I understand.
Hey, man. Yeah. Y'all took a real risk on even drafting him. Now, he made some big kicks in Georgia history, but he also bought some too. So
and Rob, that's the reason that Blair's no longer here.
Absolutely.
But had not it been for Blair and some of the kicks that he made last year, we wouldn't have we wouldn't have won the NFC North.
Right.
So, you take the good with the bad, the bitter with the sweet, and you try to make the best of it.
Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you actually were a part of that Redskins team with Doug Williams. And Doug Williams is another one of these iconic HBCU athletes that made the transition into the National Football League and had tremendous success. Just glancing back, and I hate to keep asking you to go back but
that's all right.
But my thing is that I always hear about these the glory days of HBCU sports, and FAMU and Grambling are arguably two of the greatest brands ever. When you talk about Nike, Adidas, and any of these other big brands, McDonald's, Burger King, any iconic brand, Starbucks that you could think of. I've always associated Grambling with being one of these top-notch brands, and also Florida A&M.
Absolutely.
Because nobody has done the things that Florida A&M has done when you talk about on the gridiron. I mean, they're the winningest HBCU, period.
Well, that starts. You go back. You mentioned it with your uncle. It goes back to Jake Gaither.
Right.
The legendary Jake Gaither always had the belief that he had the best athletes in the world, and if he didn't, if you listen to Jake long enough,
you believe it.
You believe it because Jake had this way of. You listen to Jake long enough, he can talk the wet out of water.
Oh my
okay?
God.
Again, we were on the tipping point of integration, and when Bear Bryant says that I need to get some to catch some, that was the migration of a lot of great black athletes leading HBCU schools, going to the major colleges. Not faulting those guys for anything, but that was the beginning of the demise of the greatest athletes in the state of Florida, not going to Florida A&M, not going to Bethune-Cookman, not going to Florida Memorial and all of those other schools, HBCU schools, the Tennessee States, the Gramblings, and all of those. That was the raid of the black athletes.
Right. And then it started with somebody that you know really well, Randall Cunningham's brother, Sam Bam Cunningham.
Absolutely.
Yeah, was the guy that actually triggered all of this. And
Absolutely.
And I just kind of wonder, like, what did he ever think what he was doing would be so transcending? Because, basically the HBCUs got pilfered, when you start, talking about from top to bottom, when at one point there wasn't a team, white or black, that could beat Florida A&M or Grambling, and then when times change and everything, then you start to see the programs kind of deteriorate from what they once were. Not that it turned into a bad product, because FAMU kept winning, Grambling kept winning, but it's just one of those things. And I talk about it on this show all the time. The integration, as much as integration was needed, at the same time, integration didn't do any justice to the HBCUs, if you will.
No, we lost some things during that period of time, and Sam understood the magnitude of the game. Those first, early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. My high school quarterback, Don Gaffney, was the first black quarterback at the University of Florida. So I understand the magnitude. Gaff understood the magnitude, because after Don went to University of Florida as a quarterback, a sophomore quarterback at Raines High School in Jacksonville, Terry LeCount, was the next black quarterback at the University of Florida. So those guys would have normally migrated to the Florida A&M,
right,
and Gramblings, and Tennessee States, Alabama States, Alabama A&M.
Well, I don't know if they would have went to Alabama A&M. They probably would have went to state, though.
I'm just talking about the opportunities.
I know.
Those opportunities, and you can't fault those guys for doing that. But again, we did lose a lot of great athletes. We lost a lot as well as culture. We lost a few other things. But again, I think Sam and those guys in the early days understood the magnitude of what it meant to play a major college at a major college and to represent.
Right.
They not only represented their school, they represented an entire culture of black folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, and this is the HBCU report. Rob Calloway on the line right now with Greg Coleman. He is